Hello, and welcome to Directly to You, a FanatixFour podcast. I am Parker of FanatixFour, and I am joined by nobody. This is a very interesting podcast this week that we're doing. If you're listening to this on audio format, it'll just be me talking for the most part. But if you're watching video, I've actually got stuff set up a little bit differently, so hopefully that'll be fun, whatever. Think of it as just like a long video that we normally do, but, podcast-wise. Instead, one of the things that we'll be doing a bit differently as I go through is the Q&A that you guys ask. Instead of doing it all at the end, I'm just going to intersperse it throughout stuff as it pertains to what we're talking about, or just randomly when it makes sense to do it. So first up, before we even get into housekeeping, a question here. I'm figuring out this technology stuff, y'all. Using OBS, doing things. Pat Green asked on Twitter, is AJ okay? Will you be doing an alter ego voice so you have someone to talk to? And can that voice be Kronk? Yeah, it can totally be Kronk. Yeah, whatever. Okay, I'm gonna tone it down because I can't keep up super high energy the whole time, especially because I'm just talking to myself, but it'll be good. Yeah, I think AJ's all right. I actually haven't talked to him a whole bunch. He just said, hey, unexpectedly, I can't join today. See if you can find a guest or whatever. I reached out to a number of people, about 8 different content creators that we're friends with, and they all were like, man, I'd love to, but I'm busy today. So it's just us here, guys, and it'll be a fantastic time anyway. We're going to talk about the news. But yeah, let's get into the housekeeping. So, some housekeeping for y'all. If you want to support this podcast, you can in a number of different ways. You can either become a member on YouTube or support us on twitch.tv/FanatixFour, or Anchor is another way. So all those places are $5 a month, unless on Twitch, if you have, a Prime membership, you can do a free month that way. I always forget about it. I have a Prime membership and I have multiple months not used it for anybody. So if you're like me, let's use it for someone at least. Seems like a good idea. But for all those things, you get different rewards and stuff. You get channel, you get emotes. I didn't write all this stuff down. I never do this. AJ always does this. But you can also join the supporters only Discord, where Mega Man is, who asked this question. He said, will Mega Man ever get his revenge on Pokemon Trainer for allowing himself to be a wrecking ball for the name of content? You too can fight AJ in Smash and be a wrecking ball in the name of content. That's what a noble cause, honestly. It's what a wonderful honor. I don't know. It's something. Mega Man, we appreciate you for doing that. That's you stepped up to the plate. You really, swung a home wicket, as they say in cricket. That's the one, right? I don't know. I'm really not sure. I don't know much about cricket other than there's, I think, a wicket, which seems a bit silly that those rhyme and are in the same, sport and all that. But, I mean, you wear a hat with a bat with baseball. So, I don't know if that's the same at all. Couldn't tell you. Really couldn't tell you. But that's probably for housekeeping. If you've been around, you know what this all is. You can listen to this show on all the streaming, on all the podcast services. But if you know of one that we're not on, that you're not listening to, but you'd rather be listening to, but you're like, every time I go to Schmurgle Burgle, which is where I listen to most of my podcasts, FanatixFour isn't on there. So just let us know. But you could rate and review on the podcast service you listen to, and that would be helpful for, placement and all that kind of good stuff. So that's about it for housekeeping. Thank you guys so much for, showing up every week and all that, and commenting and leaving questions, because that really helps us feel engaged and help just actually be engaged, not even feel engaged, have things to talk about besides just the news and just talking to each other, talking to you guys and all that. So you know what games are we playing though? I say this PowerPoint here that I'm using, it says we're playing, but it has an asterisk because you know what? I'm the only one talking about it, but you guys are also playing games. So you can, I don't know, tell me about them somewhere, message me or put them in the comments of the YouTube video or something like that. But what I'm playing this week, in any case, I'm playing more Animal Crossing. Honestly, it's a fun game, and I just keep on playing it. And I don't really have a backup that's something consistent that I just kind of keep going to. So I was playing Ni no Kuni. Actually, this is something I meant to do on here, and we're going to do it live on air. I'll pull it up here as I'm talking. But I was playing Ni no Kuni, and I still might be playing Ni no Kuni. We're about to find out how that's going to go. And I like it. It's good. I think the fact that it's 9 years old or something like that at this point makes me care a little bit less about like continuing to play it, because I don't have FOMO necessarily, but there is an incentive to be playing stuff that other people are playing. And when this is something where by the end of it, I'll be like, there we go, I got that experience, but won't really have much conversation around it. That's less incentive in any case, you know? And it's a good game, but it's not like the most enthralling game to be able to do that with. I don't feel like, because there's creatures in it in the same way that there are in like Pokemon and Digimon kind of, but I don't feel the same connection to the creatures that I have captured that I feel like I do in some of those other games. Pokemon specifically, I don't know about some of those other games. So I'm curious actually if anybody who plays like Yokai Watch, if that feels the same as Pokemon does in that case, you know, especially in one where, I don't know, Yokai Watch 4, if that's all new yokai, which I don't know that it is, but if it's all new yokai, and then in like Pokemon Black and White, where it was all new Pokemon in that were in the main game, you know, before the post game, to my understanding, I'd be really interested to know if that feels the same for you guys, if the game itself and the franchise is able to make you feel more of a connection through the gameplay comparatively, because I know for me it's not really catching the same way in Ni no Kuni. But I did run a poll last night that ended right before this now, and here it is. The poll was whether or not here's a question. I'm 16 hours into Ni no Kuni. I have a few other games in my backlog and keep playing more Animal Crossing New Horizons with more new games on the new horizon. You get it? It's a joke. That's a funny joke. I said I don't care that much about finishing a game, but also, I don't know. So I leave it in your hands. Do I finish it or not? Results are in. Okay. Out of 23 votes, yes, finishing it wins by the slimmest margin of 2.2%, 52.2% to 47.8%. So I guess it wins by 4.4%, whatever. Interesting. I guess I'll keep playing it. Yeah, I mean, it's a good game. I'll keep you guys updated on my thoughts as I go. It's not the most enthralling, like I said, but I enjoy most of the minute-to-minute stuff. So that's Ni no Kuni. You heard me talk about it a bit the other weeks as well. And I am getting further in. I have a full party of 3 people now, which seems like that's the most that you get. It's possible that you get more and have to rotate them out later. I'm not really sure. But I have a full party of 3 people, and feel like most of my Kunis, Ninos, monsters, whatever, creatures are pulling their weight to some degree. For a while, it felt like I only had one good one on each person, and they can each of your people have 3, and you can switch them out as you're supposed to switch them out fairly often because they get tired after a little while. So that's that. Animal Crossing New Horizons, just quick update on that. I'm still going through. I'm doing a bunch of terraforming on my island, and built a labyrinth last night, which is different than a maze, I'll have you know. And I would have thought it was different in the way that, like, it's, you know, like Pan's Labyrinth or whatever, or the movie Labyrinth, where it's a maze and it's like you get lost and all that stuff. But traditionally, in some culture specifically or whatever, I don't know how it's delineated exactly, but a labyrinth is it's like a meditative thing. So I remember when I was, I don't know, like 11 or something, we were visiting my grandparents who lived in the UK at the time, and my mom said, we're going to the castle of something, I don't know, of Blarg or whatever, because, you know, Monty Python, the Castle of Arg, and they have a labyrinth there, and I was very excited about this because I thought it was going to be like a hedge maze or something, kind of like in Animal Crossing, ironically, right now. We went to the castle. There was a labyrinth, as it were, but this kind of labyrinth is not, you don't get lost in it. You just follow a path, and it's supposed to be like, I don't know. I guess like counting sheep is kind of the same sort of idea, where you have something to focus on so you can like let your mind wander on other things. Or maybe like if you like driving and you're just going to drive your, standard route or something somewhere, or going on a walk or something like that, where your body knows what it's doing because it's following something, so your mind can is free to do other things. I guess that's the logic. I don't really know. But I decided Animal Crossing is supposed to be a relaxing game, so I just built one of those as well in that. So it's a little hedge area where there's just a stone path that goes around a specific pattern, and you follow it. And there's flowers all around there, so you can't run, because that's the point, is you're supposed to take it slowly, because I run everywhere. But it's good. And then also today is the beginning of the May Day stuff, because it's May 1st for me when I'm recording this. And Ashley was doing she did the May Day trip, which is you go to an island, a specific island that you can only go to throughout this amount of time. And it is kind of a maze, sort of, or a puzzle, I guess. You go through and have to collect things. It reminds me a little bit of a really stripped down Eventide Island from Breath of the Wild, which, for what it's worth, one of my favorite parts of that game. It was super fun to go to Eventide Island, have nothing going in, and have to figure it out as you go, kind of build back up from nothing. Because at that point, I probably was, I don't know, a third of the way through the game, and I had, maybe 40 shrines or something. So I was pretty strong, all things considered. Not nearly as strong as at the end, where you can kill everything in a matter of instance. But I was pretty strong. And so going to Eventide Island and being stripped back down to nothing felt fun again, because it was I just got to use whatever I can find, because at that point in the game, normally if I see a stick, I'm just going to leave the stick. If you have stronger weapons than that, you're not going to bother doing anything with the stick. So it was fun going back to that point. And the Mayday Island seems like a really stripped down version of that too, where you have no tools going in, no fruit, no anything. You get a shovel right at the beginning and then have to kind of work your way up past that. However, Ashley did you can redo it, which we found out, which was good, because she went through and accidentally hit a rock with her axe, and then went to go chop down the tree she was supposed to chop down, which takes 3 hits. And they obviously made that axe so that you could only use it 3 hits worth and it would break, but she'd accidentally hit the rock beforehand. So she was like, well, now I can't do anything. And until we figured out, you can try it as many times as you want, that was a pain and was really annoying. So she was not thrilled about that. And I was like, I don't know what to do. So, but she did it again. And I texted her about it after I was off my meeting earlier, and she was like, it was good. It was all right. It wasn't the coolest thing in the world, but it was something. So that's pretty much what I'm playing. I think next week I'd like to branch out a bit more again. Probably, obviously, going to be playing some more Ni no Kuni, but there's that. And then we've got another question here from George Skinner on the YouTube community. So we ask questions on the YouTube community tab as well. And then if you have any questions you want to ask us, then just let us know. So AJ had asked any specific topics you want us to talk about, or questions you want to ask. George Skinner said, how about going in depth about the Super Mario Maker 2 and Animal Crossing New Horizons updates, or talking about the rumors of no direct in place of E3? ? Love your vids. Thanks, George Skinner. That's very nice. So actually last week we did talk quite a bit about Super Mario Maker 2 update and the Animal Crossing New Horizon one. So I won't go a ton more into depth right now about those. But I am considering making a bit more of a deep dive video on Super Mario Maker 2 and sort of an opinion piece of sorts. So we'll see. Maybe that happens. I don't know. It's hard to tell. Depending on what stuff happens this next week might form what videos I end up making. But good question in any case. And thank you for the recommendations, because we are going to be talking about the no direct news or rumor, any of that thing. That'll be in a minute. But actually, first, we've got something fun, and it is an unboxing. This isn't a very official unboxing, but I got something in the mail today, and I didn't know what it was. Maybe I might have gotten it like 3 days ago. I don't go outside of my house anymore. Y'all, it's quarantine time. So I got this, and it was from my mom, which is very nice. They just went back, for what it's worth. Also, they just flew on a plane. My parents had been in the U.S. for a while, which is where I am, but they usually live in Brussels, Belgium, so they had to go fly back, and they'd been here an extra like 2 months over what they'd planned on being. So my mom made me... Oh no, I dropped it. Let me get it. Okay, I'm back. My mom made me this around Christmas time, which is a cross stitch. If you're listening to the audio format, it's a cross stitch of an SNES controller, NES controller, Nintendo 64 computer controller, and a Game Boy. And it says "Never forget." And she said while she was making it that she would like be around other adults and stuff, and they'd be like, "What are you even making? Like, what is that?" And she was like, "Oh, it's a cross stitch of some Nintendo controllers for my son, because he makes he has a YouTube channel on Nintendo stuff." And they were like, "I didn't understand any words you just said." So my mom must be cool, I guess. No, my mom's super cool. I love her a lot. But she'd mentioned a while back that she was making another thing similar to that. So I haven't seen it yet. I did open it just a little bit to see if it was a cross stitch, but I don't actually know what's on it yet. So here we go. Let's open it. Hey, that's awesome. Okay, well that's going up somewhere for sure. Okay, so if you're just listening to the audio, oh my goodness, this is so good. Earlier I peeked a little bit at it just to make sure again it was something worth unboxing on here and wasn't completely unrelated to the podcast. And I saw just this Koopa shell. Yeah, so if you're just listening, it's the SNES. It's Super Mario Kart lineup of characters and all the their special items and stuff. But I saw just the red shell down there and thought it was a Pokeball, and then also saw just the banana up here and thought it was some Pokemon. I didn't know what exactly, but it reminded me of something very vaguely. So, but it wasn't that. It's this, which honestly, like the great thing about cross stitches for, I know you guys can see the reflection of the screen. The great thing about cross stitches for, SNES games and all that kind of stuff is like by default, it's 16-bit or whatever, 8-bit, you can do it however you want, I guess. But just by default, it's going to look pixelated because that's how cross stitch works, is it's squares. So that means it looks super, super good. Man, my mom should do this. I'm sure she got this pattern from somewhere. So somebody else is doing it professionally or whatever, but she does such a good job. I'm proud of you, Mom, and I love you, and you're great. That was the unboxing. Wasn't that great? It wasn't even from a box, but it was from something. So here's the next Q&A. Also, I know this is a weird format, by the way. Like, as I said, I couldn't get anybody else to be on here, and had the idea for doing it like this, and was like, we'll just do it and see what happens. So I appreciate you guys, hanging in with me, because this is what we're doing. So, so Q&A before we move into the news bit, as we close up this intro section, is Grizz on the Discord asked, he asked a little before we called for questions. I think he asked yesterday, what was your favorite indie of last year? I assume he means indie game and not indie record or anything like that. Obviously indie game. So I put together this list of all of the indie games that I played in 2019. Here they are. Tourist, Untitled Goose Game, SteamWorld Quest, Undertale, Cadence of Hyrule, Bastion, Windscape, Overwhelm, It'll Do 2, Over the Top Tower Defense, or OTTTD, and Divinity Original Sin 2, which I put an asterisk on because it technically is an indie game, because technically it's an indie game. It's not like they publish in-house, but they just make like AAA. It's Larian Studios, who's also making Baldur's Gate 3, but it's like they're not being published by 2K or something like that. So they are an independent studio that self-publishes. But at the same time, if we're being honest, it's not, we're not going to count it as an indie game. Also, it would win. Like, it was my second favorite game of last year, period, right behind Fire Emblem Three Houses, and it was a close second. So we're just not going to count that one, mostly to have a more interesting conversation, because otherwise, that's it. We're done. So, but of those games, I'll give, quick highlights of them too. Tourist was super cool. Honestly, it looked really good. It's like a voxel style. If I was even more high tech, I'd have like trailers of the games going right now, but I didn't plan ahead that far. I had like an hour to put this together. So here we are. But it's like a voxel style adventure game with kind of like small island, little adventure island kinds of things. Wasn't a super long game, probably 7 hours. I almost 100%ed it, I think, in like 8 hours was what I remember. And that was including me doing a bunch of mini games a bunch of times to make sure to beat them. One of them was like an F-Zero sort of fast RMX kind of thing. And it was hard. Like I did not do super well. It took me a long time. And it was hard. And made me realize, though, that I kind of should play fast RMX or F-Zero, but Tourist was good. It probably wouldn't be number one, but I'll put that in third place. Untitled Goose Game, SteamWorld Quest. Man, this is honestly kind of hard to say. I didn't finish It'll Do 2 or Overwhelm. Windscape was actually my first review code that I ever got, because I got it probably in March of last year, and I joined this channel in January. So that was fun. It wasn't the best of these games, but it was a fun time. I'm probably going to have to say, though, either Cadence of Hyrule or SteamWorld Quest, I think, is the answer to that question. Probably, we'll say SteamWorld Quest, because all the other ones, honestly, all of these are really good. I would recommend pretty much all. I didn't finish, like I said, Overwhelm, It'll Do 2, or Over the Top Tower Defense, so I can't specifically recommend those. Windscape was okay, and all the rest of them, highly recommend. Tourist, Untitled Goose Game, SteamWorld Quest, Undertale, Cadence of Hyrule, Bastion, fantastic. And Divinity Original Sin, we all know that wins, so hey, here we go. Next up, news time. Let's get serious. That's what I wrote on the PowerPoint, for what it's worth. There was a decent amount of news this week, and some of it is interesting. Mostly the headline thing that you'll probably have seen is that there is reportedly no Nintendo Direct this June. So let me share this article. I'll pull up that screen. This is a rumor, of course, so we don't know because Nintendo hasn't said anything, and it's a rumor until Nintendo says something one way or another. But I think when E3 got canceled earlier this year, we all kind of just assumed, and we did at least because we talked about it on air a lot, that pretty much it would just carry on as usual in a lot of ways. Like Nintendo would still do their Nintendo Direct around the same time because that's what they would have planned for ahead of time. You know, most of their release schedules would have been planned around then. And well, not that they would come out then, but the marketing stuff would have been planned in reference to getting announced in June. So we were expecting that, and that even if E3 didn't do it, that still, you know, companies would kind of organize together somehow, which we'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like outside of Nintendo in a little bit. But just assume Nintendo would have kept going, and especially with having the mini Direct, it seemed like they were just biding their time, setting their eggs aside. That's not a phrase, but we're using it. That they were just kind of setting stuff aside to be able to have. Okay, I'm going to scroll down because this top part of this video or the thing keeps going. That they would have just been saving all their news up to be able to have a big June presentation. But that's not the case. They're obviously doing something different, whatever that is. So let's read the article and then we'll talk about it. So the original, how long is this? Yeah, I'll read the whole thing. So original says, usually when June rolls around, you can generally expect Nintendo to host a presentation of some kind. They used to be in the form of an in-person conferences at E3, but in recent years, the company shifted to Nintendo Directs instead. However, there's a chance that we won't be getting any sort of presentation in June this year. VentureBeat is reporting that Nintendo has told partner developers it will not hold a Nintendo Direct during the month. The site said, quote unquote, complications brought about from Japan's work from home order as a part of its attempts to mitigate COVID-19 are forcing Nintendo to push back its schedule. VentureBeat does note that Nintendo had been, quote unquote, putting together a June event. It was lining up partners and was planning to unveil its first party schedule for the rest of 2020, including news regarding Mario's 35th anniversary. It's unclear when fans can expect the next Nintendo Direct. VentureBeat says that one may not air until the very end of summer. We should note that VentureBeat accurately reported on the last Nintendo Direct after the site wrote an article in mid-March saying the broadcast would go live on March 26th. The latest Nintendo Direct Mini was published that day. There is still some news from Nintendo expected in June. The Big N previously said it would unveil and release the next DLC character for Smash Bros. Ultimate, who will be a representative from ARMS. And then there was an update later that added Eurogame is running a similar story. The site says Nintendo has told publishers to Nintendo has told publishers set to reveal games during its showcase that it needs more development time on its first-party games. Additionally, publishers have been told not to wait if they wish to make their own reveals individually. So that's something. It's not surprising. It's also not like, it's fine, considering everything going on. Like, we don't know what Nintendo's pipeline is like at all, or any companies, how they're affected specifically. I did hear somewhere recently that, I don't remember where I even heard this, but that the culture in Japan, as far as working from home, isn't really set up for that infrastructure in the same way as it is in the States, where that's kind of something a lot of us are already doing anyway. If you work certain kinds of jobs, like prior to all this, I already worked from home for my day job 2, maybe 3 days a week. And so now shifting to every day kind of sucks, but is also not that weird. And our business just carried across fine. But if your business isn't set up for that, and especially in this kind of case where that includes having studios, having equipment that you can't, if 5 different, I don't know how studios for video game stuff works, but if 5 different people are at some point or another using this one computer with this specific software that's really expensive and hard to use or something like that, or hard to run rather, getting those 5 different people their own copies of computers that'll run that software, and the software itself could be hard, and maybe their homes aren't even set up for that. So all that to say, that's a thing as far as the development of those games that they were going to be announcing. It does seem to me like they could just shift what gets announced, but at the same time, after the lackluster, I'll clarify that they still have a June presentation, but they shift around the announcements within it to be something different. And they announce the things that they can announce, and just ignore the ones that they can't. But after the lackluster mini direct reactions from people, most people were like, yeah, we understand that it wasn't like the biggest thing, but that was pretty small, all things considered. I think after that, they really would want to hit it as big as they can, put all their eggs in that basket, which is the eggs from earlier that I mentioned. So I don't know. Here's the ways that I could see this going, and it could be something different than this for sure. But here's the things that I'm thinking it could be. Number one, they could still, around June time, around when that would be, just still announce some things, have a Twitter direct like they've had before, have them all be kind of within a specific week anyway. Whatever they had to announce in the June time period, that they would have just gone ahead and told us about those, because they have to get the marketing started at some point if they still want to be able to release stuff at whatever time they want to. I don't know. It's a way I could see it going, but I don't know that it's going to, mostly because the games themselves seem to be what's being pushed out, not, because Nintendo, their main thing from Nintendo Direct is the first party games. So that's like a staple that they can't not have in there. So if the games that are holding together those reveals, are having to be pushed out, then they can't release those in a direct or out of a direct or anything. So I imagine we'll still see some of that, but I don't know that it'll be kind of confined in a week's time. I think just randomly in the same way that we got some, news last week for Mario Maker update and Animal Crossing. Well, the Animal Crossing stuff makes sense, but Splatoon 2 having the demo and stuff. I think it'll be a bit more like that, where they're like, we'll just put it out when we feel like we can, when it feels like it makes sense, and then we'll wait until, it sounds like towards the end of the summer we could be having a Nintendo Direct. So, depending on how stuff goes there. It's interesting for sure. At this point, we've got plenty to play. I imagine we'll hear more about the Smash characters and all that. I still think that that's something we could be finding more out about throughout the year. Obviously, Pokemon DLC's coming out as well, so it's not like nothing's happening, but it's a change up for sure. So, and here's a question that we've got on that, or related to that. So this is from Lord Commander Grimhane. And he says, with the news that Nintendo won't do an E3 Direct, are they finally canceled as the clear failures they're providing for one of the hottest selling systems this decade, but then ignoring us, the consumer, 3 years after its launch? Let me tell you something. Yeah, Nintendo just can't. Nintendo canceled. Nobody even knows who they are anymore. They're dead to us. No, obviously he's kidding. I'm kidding too. Yeah, so that's that. Grimhane, I appreciate your candor and your really, put it through the effort and the emotion in this hard time. That is all. No, yeah. So it does suck because this, probably would have been a big year for Nintendo if it weren't for all this stuff. But this also would have been a big year for going outside and seeing friends for all of us. And it's not, and that's okay. We're just going to have to deal with it. So next article coming on up. Here we go. We got, do the thing. Oh, yeah. Never mind. Not next article. I got a question that I set up here, too. This one is from Cool on the YouTube community. Again, AJ asked if there were any topics that we should be talking about. And so Cool said, you should definitely talk about the hacks that happened on the Switches and the fact that the June presentation has been delayed. Also said, been watching the channel for a long time, but why is the channel called FanatixFour if it's just you two? That is a secret I'll never tell. XOXO. Gossip. I set up scenes in OBS. Again, if you're watching the YouTube video of this, it's probably a little bit more entertaining than listening to the audio, but I appreciate audio listeners. That's how I listen to podcasts, honestly. So I don't fault anybody for anything, but I wish I'd set up a scene that zoomed into my face because that would have been way more fun, but it's okay. Whatever. Honestly, I kind of don't know the answer a little bit to why it's called FanatixFour, but it's just the two of us, because I joined when it was just 2 or 3 people ish anyway. So if I'm being honest, if I remember right, I think there were actually 4 people at the way beginning, very briefly, but the name's just the name, it's just what it is. And ever since then, it's been 2 or 3 people kind of in and out. Right now, it's 2 of us doing videos and then Justin doing some back end stuff. So that's 3 people. And then number 4 is you guys. That's 4, FanatixFour. You guys, we're all fanatics and crazy. Also, cool. You mentioned the hacks that happen on the Switches. Yeah, I don't know what those are. I wasn't paying attention to that. So let me know in the comments because I truly don't know. But the next topic is, and this is, Nintendo wasn't on this as far as talking about stuff, but this is the Summer of Games. This is something that was announced by Geoff Keighley on Twitter. So let me pull that up real quick. We got this tweet right here where Geoff Keighley said Phase 1, and he put up this big old picture. And so it's the Summer Game Fest. And so the lineup here is 2K, Activision, Bandai Namco, Bethesda, Blizzard, Bungie, CD Projekt Red, Extremis, which I don't know what that one is, EA, maybe it's something else and I'm misreading it, EA, PlayStation, Private Division, Riot Games, Square Enix, Steam, Warner Brothers, and Xbox. No Nintendo, which is interesting. We'll get to that in a minute, but at least we know this is going on. And then so there was this video put out, but Geoff Keighley said, introducing Summer Games Fest, a season of news, in-game events, and playable content from the entire video games industry, May through August 2020, and developer showcase with IM8-bit as well. See you soon, Summer Games Fest 2020. And then last but not least, and then we'll talk more about it, he read he said the following, which I thought was good and kind of sums up my feelings on it too. Since I was a kid, one of my favorite parts of the summer has been seeing all the video game companies band together to hype us up about the future of this incredible medium. This year has been a challenge for all of us. For a while, I thought 2020 might be the first time in 25 years we didn't have a big magic industry-wide moment. It really bummed me out to see everything fracture. More than ever, this is a year we need a positive, uplifting center of gravity to bring this global community together. So that's what we're going to build. Today, I'm proud to announce Summer Game Fest, a 4-month-long season of news events from all your favorite game platforms and publishers. It's all the news you've been waiting for, but also in-game events, playable content and demos and of select titles, and a bunch of fun surprises. Summer Games Fest isn't a singular show, but a whole season for events. The schedule hub at summergamefest.com will guide you through the next 4 months to make sure you don't miss a thing. And trust me, there are some amazing events coming, and I'm working on some plans for a developer showcase with my friend at I'm 8-Bit, of course, and of course Gamescom Online on August 24th as a season finale. Thanks to all the game companies and developers who are working hard and under challenging circumstances to keep us entertained. I hope Summer Game Fest is a way to show these artists just how much their work helps us get through uncertain and scary times. Keep playing the future. Gaming is about to get really bright this summer. Okay, that was a lot of words. I apologize for reading so many words at your faces. Your ear holes heard it. There it is. No, so Summer Game Fest, this is awesome. I'm super glad to see this happen because I think we did know about IGN's Summer of Games. I don't know if that's merged with this and he's working. I don't know if this is hosted by IGN and by him and it's IGN. I don't really know. But that was the thing that they talked about was IGN's Summer of Games. And I think something like this is really good for these companies to be able to work together. Gives a lot of flexibility because it's May to August. So really, it sounds like if, say I'm Geoff Keighley and you guys are all the developers, I could be like, hey, here's the thing. We've got these months. Who of you could be ready for May 15th? Like, call your bid and then that's yours. May 15th, you can announce some stuff, which Xbox seems like they're the ones starting us off next week because they're going to have some announcements about the Xbox One X or Xbox Series X and some news with that. So that'll be really interesting. In general, the Summer of Games, though, like it needed to have something collating it together, kind of bringing it all together, because otherwise I think developers could very easily kind of like step on each other's toes unintentionally, where there's definitely times where Nintendo will announce something and Sony will be like, here's this, like, I don't remember what it was, but I think the SNES Classic, it was Nintendo Switch Online or something like that was announced. And then the next day, the PlayStation Classic was announced, that kind of a thing, silly jabs like that, where it's like, we're going to announce something right after you just to mess with you. But I think in this case, all these companies acknowledge like we need this year to go as well as possible and try not to step on each other's toes, because the better everybody's doing, the better everybody else is going to be doing. So, and especially because most of these are just publishers. So like, for the most part, yes, there's a certain amount of money spent that can be had across different across all sorts of different games. So like if 1 million games come out, I'm still only going to be able to play a certain amount of them. But for the most part, if new people are buying consoles for one game, that means that there's a bigger market for other games to be on there. You know what I mean? So I think this being organized together is great. However, and this is the question that I have for this, Bouncy Bob that's the game. Banjo Bob. Hey, Banjo Bob. You and I talked in the comments a couple days ago. Banjo Bob asked, what are your thoughts on Nintendo being absent from Phase 1 of Summer Game Fest that was announced today? I think this is a great question. I have some theories. Number one, a curiosity of mine, though, is what does Phase 1 mean? Because they haven't really said. It could be that Phase 1 is just year 1 and it's like this is how it's going to begin. Over the future it'll evolve into something different, or it could mean that this is Phase 1 of this year's Summer Games Fest, which, to be honest, doesn't make sense to me, because on that slide from earlier, all those publishers and developers and stuff, well, I guess, that were listed, it said May through August 2020 for all those, and it said phase 1. So I can't imagine that phase 2 just intersperses more stuff into that. It could, like maybe, but I can't think of many other big publishers that weren't on that list besides Nintendo. So there definitely are some, but I don't know that's going to be a thing. So I think the most tinfoil hat theory that it could be is that Nintendo doesn't want to announce anything yet and doesn't want to set anything in stone, but that they could still be in the background talking to Geoff Keighley and all that. They have a great relationship about being a part of the Summer Game Fest anyway, just not being announced on the front end because there's a bit more mystery what's going on there. Whereas like we know games are coming out from publishers. I mean, we know games are coming out from Nintendo as well, but we know these other publishers have games they have to announce for the Xbox Series X, the PlayStation 5 and stuff. And Nintendo's the only company that really has nothing to do with those two new consoles, and we need to know, or a lot of people need to know what games are going to be coming out for those consoles. So that's why this is really important. Sorry, my lip is itchy. Yeah, so I'm just really curious to see how this pans out. Ideally, it would be like every 2 weeks there's a digital presentation or there's a whole week worth of news that comes out where like they have an announcement on this day, they drop a trailer, then, live stream stuff different days, something like that. But I agree with Geoff's sentiment for sure that having something to look forward to and band around is pretty essential. Not essential. It sounds too entitled, but is really helpful in a time that otherwise is kind of discouraging and hard for a lot of people. Honestly, myself included, like it's been a really hard time just like not being able to see friends, like having life is just different right now, and that's fine. And it needs to be different for things to get better. But at the same time, like, boy, do I not wish it could just be normal at the same time. So, yeah, I've got a good support structure, which is great. And I've got a lovely wife and cute puppies. But I would love to see some friends. So that was an interesting piece of news. A good question from Banjo Bob. I'll be very interested to see what it ends up looking like in the end and all that. So, but this news article was a bit of a shock to me, to be perfectly honest. The Mother series is getting a book. Like, what in the world? So let's read the article together. It's very interesting. So the title is Hobonichi Mother Project Announced. Book containing all dialogue coming. Other news teased. And here's what we got. And I think all that we've gotten is the teaser trailer in Japanese. So that's interesting. Because, like, why only in Japanese? I don't know. But the article says, Nintendo's Mother series hasn't had a lot of news in recent years, but that's starting to change today. New initiatives are being planned as a part of the Hobonichi Mother Project. The first update concerns a book containing every piece of dialogue from the franchise. It's tentatively planned for release by the end of this year. Other merchandise is planned as well, though no specific information has been provided. Quote unquote, several other announcements have been teased that will make fans of the series happy. And somewhere, it doesn't say it on this, but I'm pretty sure it said that it was going to be, well, if it doesn't say it here, then that's interesting because that was part of my point. Somewhere it says that it's going to be in other languages or all languages or something and not just Japanese, I guess, which obviously is very interesting considering Mother 3 has never officially been localized outside of Japan. And that's the game. Everybody's been clamoring for that one for, I say everyone, but that's been the meme for all these years since 2006 when it came out on the Game Boy Advance. That's the game that people have wanted and wondered about and stuff. So if they now have the dialogue in English come out in a book, could be that was a mistranslation, and that it's only coming out in Japan, only in Japanese, and in which case less validity to my theory here. But if it's coming out in English, then like that was like the thing that's holding them back from doing a localization here is the dialogue, because the rest is the game's the same. They have to like program the dialogue into places, but that's less hard than translating it itself, because it's not just translating, it's localizing, which means all the jokes have to make sense and all that kind of stuff. You can't just slap it in Google Translate because puns won't make any sense, etc., etc. Localization, it's hard, I'm sure. But the thing about all this is, it seems to me, and I tweeted out about this the other day, it seems to me that this would be so irresponsible. Fine if they do it, but so irresponsible for them to bring this back in this way, localize it to different languages, and put out a book of all this for it to only be this. Like, that doesn't make sense to me if that's what they're doing. Because if there were no clamoring for it or anything, like if it wasn't already a meme, then that's fine. I'm trying to think of an equivalent to that, even like, I don't know, like Ice Climbers or something, like a game that's like, yeah, whatever. I mean, there's no dialogue in Ice Climbers, but something equivalent to that. And they were like, oh, we're just going to put out a book about it. I could see them just doing that and it not being a big deal. But in this case, to me specifically, if this is the end all be all of this announcement, that doesn't make any sense, because they know how much people have been talking about wanting Mother 3 for the longest time, and they haven't done anything about it. And now this is the closest that it would have ever been. And on top of that, I saw somebody point this out somewhere and quite agree that Earthbound Beginnings has never come, and Earthbound haven't come to Nintendo Switch Online. And Earthbound Beginnings, like, Mother 1, that would be one of like the only NES games. We're getting a bunch of trash NES games these days. Like, it's not good ones. And there are still some good ones. I mean, there's plenty of third-party good ones that they could pull over, but that's one of the only first-party ones. It's like a just glaring omission is Earthbound Beginnings, especially because it was localized back on the Wii U. So it seems like an easy time to, at minimum, do, since it's localized now, do a Mother collection that's exactly the same, not up-res or anything like that, or put them all at the same time on Nintendo Switch Online, so that at that point, they don't have Earthbound Beginnings and then Earthbound, and then people are like, what about Mother 3? They can just do them all at once, get it over with. So they could go a couple different ways with this, but if this is the end of, if it's just this book, that seems irresponsible to me. In my personal opinion, I also kind of don't care that much for me, but I care for a lot of other people that do care, and just for their PR in general, because that would be tricky. But yeah, speaking of Earthbound Beginnings, though, the question following up on this is Grizz again asks, was the Wii U a flop? Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think we would all agree. The definition of a flop, I don't think is the same as it being bad. Like something could be, I don't know, like that's the whole point of hidden gems, on something, or like honestly Xenoblade Chronicles, which we'll talk a little bit about that later on in the podcast. Xenoblade Chronicles, the original one, was sort of a flop on the Wii just because it just didn't sell particularly well because they didn't make enough copies. They put it out at the end of the Wii lifespan, like all that kind of stuff. It had everything going against it. But obviously a game lots of people love and was considered a great game at the time, but commercially, that's not the best example, but you get the point. The Wii U, yeah, 100%. It didn't sell as well as they wanted it to. That's the thing. It's one of the worst selling consoles of all time. Of the like main, it sold better than the Sega Saturn and stuff like that, to my recollection. But and the Dreamcast, I'm pretty sure. But let's talk about it a little bit more specifically. Nintendo had the success of the Wii, and then they wanted to keep going, into the casual audience in the same way, but also kind of branch off of there. And I think the reason that it was a flop is, it's talked about all the time, actually. I'm not going to go too much into it, but speaking from very personal experience, when I saw the trailer for the Wii U, my roommate was watching. I remember it was summer of 2012, and as many of our regular listeners know, I wasn't paying attention to gaming barely at all at the time. It was summer of 2012. I was at college living with 4 other guys, and one of my roommates was super into Brawl at the time. So he was just, paying attention to Nintendo stuff and was watching the E3 presentation, and he showed me, either I was sitting in the room with him when he was watching it, or he showed me later, but I saw the trailer for the Wii U. I think I was sitting with him because I remember when they announced it's the Wii U, and they pulled the U up or something like that. And he was like, "What? Really?" And I legitimately was just like, "Oh, so just more Wii. Okay." And then was never corrected. And for several years, I, as somebody who's now very much in the gaming space and cares about all this and knows lots of things, at the time really had zero clue. It felt like a peripheral to me as far as I was to understand it. And when I went to the store, in 2016, when I finally got another Wii after 2015, my wife and I got married, and I was like, I should have a Wii. So we got one, and I'd go to the store, and there would be a whole section of Wii U games, and then equally as many, maybe more Wii games, which is that's pretty sad for the newest generation to have. Imagine if right now you went to the store and it was Xbox One games and then Xbox 360 games, and there were as many Xbox or more Xbox 360 games as Xbox One games. That's pretty pitiful. But that's the way it was. It seemed at least in my stores. And I'd go and be like, man, why is there so many Wii U games? I wish they just put out more Wii games instead. They didn't market well that this was a new system that you needed to have. So a lot of people just didn't have it. The only thing that tempted me to get it as a very casual observer was at some point I fell into the Super Mario Maker YouTube rabbit hole and was like, I would like to play Super Mario Maker. But I didn't get a Wii U for that. Instead, I just got it on Switch. So good question. Whether the Wii U was a flop, it certainly was. But the next news article, not a flop. Reggie, he is a fantastic, I would say little guy, but he's very tall. He's 6'1", so I guess he's not that tall, but he's he's just feels he's a guy. Reggie, he's got a podcast. This isn't going to be a long news article, but wanted to share this with you guys because I thought it was super cool. So, former Nintendo chief Reggie Fils-Aimé joins new podcast to raise funds for homeless youths. I don't want to read this whole article because it's quite long, and I don't feel like doing all that. But the crux of it is that to raise money, he and another guy who was listed here somewhere, but I forgot where and forgot his name, are coming together to make a podcast. And the idea is that you would be a donor on GoFundMe. And from that, you get some benefits for the podcast. You could listen to some extra excerpts. So everybody can listen to the base one, but there's some extra bits that you can listen to otherwise. And then the first one, he's going to have Geoff Keighley on. And that GoFundMe, though, it says will be used to provide games and game consoles to youths in homeless shelters. The games, Fils-Aimé said, would provide them escape and positive experiences, especially since some shelters lack internet access. So this is something, I wonder if it's anything past that. I don't really know. I mostly just skimmed this article because I thought it was interesting. But it's super cool to be doing charitable stuff. It's fun for us to be able to listen to more things, but also serving your community and volunteering and doing any, I mean, charitable stuff in general is really important and it's really good to be doing. That's my parents run a nonprofit that's all about volunteer mobilization. So I've got a soft spot in my heart for that. So yeah, I don't know. Nothing crazy to be saying here. You know what? Even though this article is super long, but there it is. Look at that. When I find out the details about when the podcast is going up, I'll let you know. But to be perfectly honest, I don't know all the details. I was looking myself, but didn't find anything straight up. So it's fun to me. As an aside, here's just a thought that I had too, that Reggie specifically is still doing things like engaging with the community in a way that he doesn't need to by any means. He's retired. He's, working with GameStop. He's on their board now, and doing things where he's still involved. But just the fact that he has a presence still for good and for, positive, like obviously caring about people and not just being, I don't know, some corporate shill or something like that. It just warms my heart and makes me feel happy about it. So that's that. It's good stuff. And then here's a question from Duncan on our Discord. What's up, Duncan? Said, yo, P-Dog, what? I love it. Side note, one of my villagers named Curly, who's a pig, asked me, hey, is it okay if I call you Vitamin P? And I said, sure, why not? And now every time he sees me, he's like, what's up, Vitamin P? Like, that's not a good... That's just, it is what it is, but it's funny to me. Okay. He says, yo, P-Dog, what are one or some games that you know is objectively bad, but you love anyway? If you've got a few, what would you consider the most shameful? Honestly, I thought about this question. Like last week. Somebody tweeted out something that was similar effect of like, what's the game that you love with the lowest Metacritic score? Something like that. And I looked up some games that I like that, I mean, all the Switch game, like I know the rough general Metacritic scores of the Switch games that I played. So I had to just look back, like, what are some older games of mine that I played, and their scores. And like most of them were pretty good. So I don't know the answer to this question, to be honest. Like most of them I feel like are just decent games, like because I'd get them by recommendation back in the day, or now like most of the games that I don't like also are ones that didn't do super well. I mean, I have the opposite of that, I guess. Like, that Assassin's Creed 3 was one that people apparently, I guess, didn't like very much, and I also wasn't a huge fan of it, playing it for the first time last year. So I'll have to get back to you on this, because I feel like most of the games that I like are just also good games that most people like. Maybe this is a hot take. According to AJ, Pokemon Blue, I still like it. Like I'd still play Pokemon. The only problem that I have with it is legitimately just movement is slow. Like I don't like having to walk to get from place to place very slowly. You get the bicycle eventually, but it's still not great, you know? Like it would be nice to move faster, especially because I know where I'm trying to go. It's not like if I were exploring at that pace, that would be one thing, but like knowing that I want to get to the other side of the map and I don't have fly yet or something like that is like, I just want to be there by now. I honestly have the same thing in real life. There were times in college, especially, I remember that I'd be on one side of campus and know I have to get to the other side of campus, not even really be in a rush, but like, I just don't feel like just walking there. So I'm just going to run, and I don't have to. And in retrospect, that probably looked weird, just seeing a kid just running across campus, but at the same time, just assume they're running late for class and everything is fine. You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. And then also, it's fine to be super excited. I don't know. Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. We're getting a lot of news about this. I'm not going to share much of it because I haven't looked into much of it, but I just wanted to let you guys know, in case you didn't already, that there's more news about Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. And like, again, I haven't played the original yet. I almost did. I again, before the Switch, Christmas of 2015. Christmas of 2015. Just bought my Wii earlier that year, and then gave my wife a list of like, here's some games that I'd be interested in. And the top two that I was like, I really like it to be one of these two, was Twilight Princess and Xenoblade Chronicles. And she got Twilight Princess, so I didn't get Xenoblade Chronicles. And then eventually Switch came out and stuff, so I just never went back to it and don't have it. And so I'm excited to play it for the first time. I played Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and I really enjoyed that a lot. I have Torna that I got this last Christmas, but I haven't played it yet. So I'll probably go back to that after I've played the original, because they connect and stuff, to my understanding. But all that said, they've got a bunch of things coming out, and I don't know if I want to look into it or not, but I know about Future Connected. Here's the details that I do know that aren't spoilery at all. It takes place after the game. Something. There's a new kind of enemy, I think, so that's fun. And it sounds like speculation. I saw Stealth post on Twitter that he's speculating that it'd be like 20 to 25 hours worth of content, and it's coming in the game for free, which is super cool. So to me it sounds like like Torna but less. But that was paid DLC, whereas this is just free as part of the game, because obviously for people that have played the original game, this is something else to be able to play on top of that, which is real neat. And it also, I think it takes place on the Bionis' shoulder, which I know was an area that had gotten cut from the original game. So the whole original game is as it was in the areas that it was. And this is in a new area that we never have gotten to see, which is real fun. So let me know. I'm curious who of you guys are actually excited about this game. I know I am, but I know not everybody is into the same games that I am. I don't think AJ cares about this at all. AJ, do you care about this at all? I don't know. We'll find out. But I'm excited about it. So we'll see what happens. And then, you know what? This last question that we got, and then that'll actually be right around the end, is Sardi asks, have you experimented with new foods during quarantine? How did they turn out, and would you recommend them to your viewers, listeners? I feel like I did. Yeah. I also don't remember. This was a while back, so I kind of feel like I might have mentioned this on the podcast at some point. I made a dish that Ashley was like, I want something that has like a casserole with like hamburger meat in it, or something, like, ground beef in it, but that's like cheesy and ricey and stuff. And I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, I'll look something like that up. Or maybe she looked it up, or we looked it up, but I made it, but we were missing several of the ingredients, and we weren't going out to the store because quarantine and all that. And we didn't need other things. We just needed the ingredients for this. But like chili sauce was one of the things that we didn't have, but it was a thing that it asked for. And it was a crock pot recipe. And I looked up how to make chili sauce and found a thing. And it suggested a certain amount of various things, one of which was cinnamon. And I put cinnamon in there. That was a mistake. So I made the meal. I don't even know what it's called, but I made the meal in the crock pot, and it just tasted like beefy, cheesy cinnamon rice, which is, not really what you're looking for. I thought it was fine. Like every time we had a ton of it because it's a crock pot recipe. So I put a bunch of hot sauce and sour cream in there just to like add some kind of more savory flavors and have it more balanced out. But Ashley like had half a bowl and was like, it's just really sweet and cinnamony. And I was like, yeah. So, that is what it is. I can't, it was a time. Besides that though, I mean, we're sticking to pretty much usuals, for better or for worse. I did accidentally, or I was at this store and wanted to buy some frozen, chicken tenders, or like, breaded chicken or something. And they didn't have any, but they had buffalo chicken strips, and I got those and was like, probably these aren't going to be that great, but I was like, I'll make some for myself. I don't think Ashley will like them because, like, they're kind of spicy, I guess. I made 2 of them one day for lunch, and I was like, Ashley, you want one of these? She's like, I'll try it. And she loved it. So we've gotten those a couple more times. So that's been good. But otherwise, nothing crazy. But you know what, guys? That's about it. I'm going to check real quick, make sure there's no last-minute questions that came in, because if so, I'd love to answer them before we go. But I suspect that we have about tapped out most of the things. And I'm checking. No. Oh, nope. That's it. That's all the questions. So here's the thing. This has been a weird podcast. If you're new to this, this isn't how our podcasts normally are. But if any of this is stuff that you'd like us to bring into our normal podcast, cool. That's awesome. We're thinking about how to switch stuff up. This isn't the way we were planning on switching anything up, by the way. But we're talking about that in any case. We'll probably run some ideas by, if you're in our supporters Discord, because you're one of our supporters, we'll probably be talking to you about some ideas of what we're thinking of doing moving forward in the future, and would love to hear your thoughts on that. I didn't need to tell you that on this necessarily, because you already know. You're super active if you're in the supporters Discord. But if you're not, you could be, if you support this channel, and that would be a cool thing to do. So that's about it from me. Again, thank you so much for tuning in and for your patience throughout all this. Hopefully you had a fun time. I know I did. I've been wearing these headphones this whole time, even though I don't need to. There's no reason for me to be wearing these headphones except for it helps me speak more naturally because can't hear myself quite as well. So that, that's a thing. And then I wouldn't be like, whispering down, because like nobody cares if I'm talking loud. That's the whole point of it. Just got to be talking normal. But that's it for me. You know what? See you guys next week. Thank you so much for tuning in, and comment down below. Here's the question for today. 15 or 24, in the comments of the YouTube video, just let me know 15 or 24. That's what I'm very curious about. You can, and explain why, because maybe that means something to you that it doesn't mean to me. And we'll find out. That's it for me. See you guys later.